Imagine waking up tomorrow to the biggest headline in modern history. Global borrowing has stopped. No new government debt, no new corporate loans, no new mortgages, no new credit cards, no new bonds. At first, it sounds like the world finally became responsible. No more debt, no more financial excess, no more living beyond our means. But within days, banks begin freezing loans. Companies cancel expansion projects. Governments slash spending overnight. Businesses stop hiring. Home sales collapse. Markets panic. The global economy doesn't celebrate. It starts suffocating. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The modern world isn't simply built on money. It's built on tomorrow's money. And that's why the world can't afford to stop borrowing. For most people, debt feels personal. A mortgage, a student loan, a car payment, a credit card bill. Debt is usually framed as something to escape. Financial advisors tell us to eliminate it. Parents warn children about it. Politicians promise to reduce it. The message seems obvious. Debt is dangerous. So naturally, you'd expect a world with less borrowing to become safer. Instead, something strange happened over the last century. The richer the world became, the more debt it accumulated. Today, global debt exceeds $300 trillion. That's more than 3 times the value of everything produced by the world's economies in an entire year. Governments owe money, businesses owe money, households owe money, banks owe money. Entire financial systems owe each other money in layers so complex that no single institution can map every connection in real time. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It became the operating system. To understand why, we have to rewind. Imagine a small town 100 years ago. A farmer wants a tractor. He doesn't have enough cash. A local bank lends him the money. The farmer produces more crops, sells more food, pays back the loan with interest. Everyone wins. Debt created something real. More production, more income, more wealth. Now scale that idea. A factory borrows to build machines. A city borrows to build bridges. A company borrows to invent new technology. A government borrows to build highways. In each case, borrowing pulls future income into the present. Instead of waiting 10 years to save enough money, investment happens today. That speeds up economic growth. This is why economists often describe credit as the fuel of expansion. Without it, development slows dramatically. But then something changed. Borrowing stopped being just a tool for building productive assets. It became the engine that kept demand alive. Think about buying a home. Very few people save $500,000 before purchasing one. Instead, they borrow. That borrowing allows builders to keep building. Construction workers stay employed. Furniture stores make sales. Banks earn interest. Local governments collect taxes. One mortgage triggers an entire chain reaction across the economy. The same applies to cars, businesses, education, infrastructure, even governments themselves. Debt isn't sitting quietly in the background. It's constantly moving through the economy like blood through arteries. Remove enough of it, and circulation slows, then stops. Now, here's where things become less intuitive. Most people imagine banks simply lending money they already possess. Someone deposits $10,000. The bank lends those same dollars to someone else. Simple. Except, that isn't how modern banking primarily works. When a bank approves many loans, it often creates new deposit money electronically. The loan appears as an asset for the bank. The deposit appears in the borrower's account. New purchasing power enters the economy. Money and debt are born together. Repay the loan completely. And that money effectively disappears from circulation. This is one reason debt plays such a central role. Much of the money we use exists because someone, somewhere, borrowed it. That realization changes everything. Imagine every borrower suddenly deciding to repay every loan at once, while nobody borrowed another dollar. Outstanding debt shrinks. So does a significant amount of money circulating through the financial system. Less spending, lower business revenue, layoffs, lower tax collections, lower investment. The economy begins contracting. It's almost like trying to drain fuel from a plane while it's still flying. Now let's talk about governments. Every election cycle, politicians promise fiscal discipline, reduce deficits, control spending, balance budgets. The language sounds responsible. Sometimes it is. But there's another side. Modern governments finance enormous portions of their activities through borrowing: roads, military spending, disaster relief, healthcare, scientific research, social programs. During recessions, governments often borrow even more. Why? Because households reduce spending, businesses delay investment. If governments also stop spending, economic activity can collapse even faster. This happened during several historical crises. After the Great Depression, many governments dramatically expanded borrowing and public investment. During the 2008 financial crisis, trillions were injected into economies through emergency programs. Then came 2020. Governments around the world borrowed on a scale few economists imagined possible. The United States alone added trillions of dollars in new federal debt within months. Europe borrowed, Japan borrowed, emerging economies borrowed. The goal wasn't elegance, it was survival. Without that borrowing, unemployment likely would have climbed even higher. Businesses would have disappeared in greater numbers. Entire industries could have collapsed. Borrowing bought time. But time isn't free. Debt carries interest, and interest quietly changes the story. Imagine borrowing $1,000 at 5% interest. Eventually, you repay $1,050. Where does the extra 50 come from? Usually from future income generated by economic activity. That's manageable if the economy grows faster than borrowing costs. But if growth slows while debt keeps expanding, repayment becomes increasingly difficult. Countries face this problem. Companies face it. Families face it. Sometimes they refinance. Sometimes they extend maturities. Sometimes they borrow more to repay old borrowing. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly what happens across much of the global financial system. Old debt is frequently replaced with new debt, not because nobody understands mathematics, because immediate repayment would be economically devastating. Think of it like riding a bicycle. As long as the wheels keep turning, balance is possible. Come to a sudden stop, and gravity takes over. Financial markets operate in a surprisingly similar way. Every year, governments issue new bonds. Corporations refinance existing loans. Banks renew credit lines. Millions of mortgages are refinanced. Investors buy those securities expecting future payments. Pension funds depend on them. Insurance companies depend on them. Retirement portfolios depend on them. The system isn't waiting for debt to disappear. It's waiting for debt to keep moving. Here's where public perception often collides with reality. People hear national debt numbers climbing into the trillions. Some assume immediate collapse. Others assume debt never matters. Neither view is completely accurate. Debt itself isn't automatically dangerous. Its sustainability depends on several moving parts: economic growth, interest rates, productivity, inflation, investor confidence, political stability, and perhaps most importantly, trust. Because every loan is ultimately built on belief. The lender believes repayment will happen. The borrower believes tomorrow will be better than today. Without that shared belief, lending freezes. When trust disappears, financial crises spread astonishingly fast. We saw this in 2008. Banks suddenly questioned each other's balance sheets. Credit markets tightened. Companies struggled to finance operations. Consumers reduced spending. The panic became self-reinforcing, not because factories vanished overnight, not because workers forgot their skills, but because confidence disappeared. Money is psychological. Credit is even more psychological. Now, consider another irony. Many of the world's wealthiest investors actively use debt, not because they lack cash, because borrowing can preserve liquidity, reduce taxes in certain circumstances, and amplify returns when investments perform well. Large corporations do something similar. Even companies holding billions in cash often issue bonds instead of spending all their reserves. Why? Because debt can be strategically cheaper than giving up ownership or draining cash needed for future opportunities. This creates a strange contradiction. Ordinary people are often taught that debt is always bad. Yet some of the world's largest institutions treat borrowing as an ordinary business tool. Neither perspective tells the whole story. Debt isn't inherently good. Debt isn't inherently evil. It's leverage. And leverage magnifies whatever already exists. Strong investments become stronger. Weak decisions become disasters. Now, let's zoom out. The world faces aging populations, expensive healthcare systems, climate adaptation costs, military competition, artificial intelligence investment, energy transitions, infrastructure upgrades. Every one of these challenges requires enormous capital. Where will that money come from? Higher taxes, lower spending, faster economic growth, or more borrowing? History suggests the last answer often wins. Not because it's painless, because it's politically easier than the alternatives. Future taxpayers rarely vote in today's elections. Future debt doesn't protest outside Parliament. Future interest payments don't appear immediately. Borrowing pushes difficult decisions forward. Sometimes that's wise, sometimes it's reckless, usually it's both at the same time. And that's the hidden mechanic behind the modern economy. Debt isn't simply financing the future. In many ways, it's allowing the present to function, which raises an unsettling possibility. If borrowing must continue to keep the system stable, what happens when lenders finally decide they've had enough? Not because governments want to stop borrowing, not because businesses choose to stop borrowing, but because the people financing tomorrow stop believing tomorrow will pay them back. That's the question markets quietly ask every single day. And so far, the answer has been yes. One more loan, one more bond auction, one more refinancing, one more promise that future growth will make today's borrowing worthwhile. Maybe that confidence continues for decades. Maybe technology delivers extraordinary productivity. Maybe economies grow into their debts. Or maybe the mathematics eventually catches up with the optimism. Because in the end, the world's biggest financial system isn't built on paper, computers, or central banks. It's built on a simple assumption that tomorrow will always be rich enough to pay for today. The real question isn't whether the world can stop borrowing. It's whether one day borrowing will stop choosing the world.